Hello to all viewers of this webinar series called EduCampion. Maraming salamat po sa Rex Education sa imbitasyong makilahok sa programang ito. My name is Dina Ocampo from the UP College of Education, and I'm going to share with you on the importance of student agency. As teachers, we always want the best for our students, and we ask the question, how do we envision our students' futures? We always answer this question by bringing up our aspirations and wishes for them, such as happiness, kindness, and very Filipino values, such as respect for elders, honesty, kindness, and, of course, nationalism. Sometimes, however, we notice that our commitment to these aspirations are different from the commitment of the children themselves. And today, we will discuss a possible explanation why there are differences in those commitments. Student agency is an educational construct that is derived from the social cognitive theory proposed by Dr. Albert Bandura. He expounded on agency in his theory, and he said that our actions are propelled by three things: personal factors, environmental factors, and behavior. He also said that our actions are driven by goals, which are richly contextualized and socially situated and orchestrated within an environment. We need to understand agency in the context of schools and classrooms. Agency enables people to play a part in self-development, adaptation, self-renewal with the changing times. The word cloud on our screen shows the terms that are usually associated with agency. Among these are intention, planning, goals, actions, reflectiveness, motivation, and cognitions. Student agency, on the other hand, is thus defined as the capacity to set a goal, reflect, and act responsibly to effect change in one's own learning and development. Sometimes it's also called learner agency. In Filipino, I think the most appropriate term is kusa. Kusa sa pag-aaral, sa pagkatuto, at sa pagpapalago ng sarili. These are some prevailing definitions of agency. These are drawn from research by various organizations across the world. In summary, agency is about acting rather than being acted upon, shaping rather than being shaped, and making responsible decisions and choices rather than accepting those that were determined by others. So the question that arises is, what can students apply their agency on? Here are some examples. I've identified 5 areas for us today. The first is on what they learn, such as the curriculum. They can identify together with their teachers goals for learning, curriculum content, what books or texts they want to read. Second would be how they will learn and how they will know if they are learning. Modalities of learning, for example, platforms to use, online, hybrid, books, and instructional materials to use. These are all important for this second area. Third, on when and where they want to learn. This is very important because, especially after the pandemic, our world has opened up to options that weren't available to us before because of policy, But now, we can adjust schedules, we can time assessments, and there is flexibility in assignments. Fourth area is with whom they want to learn. For example, students can have interest groups, clubs, and organizations to join, school and community activities to participate in. Number 4, I think we have been doing very well for many years. Number 5, on classroom and school policy. Students can apply student agency when they elect their student government, but usually it stops there with student activities. We can pull that or push that a bit further by talking about how does the school manage its resources? Is it following green architecture, or is it following environmentally friendly waste management? These are things that students can weigh on. So here are examples of 10 ways to give students more control over their learning. One is to vary assessment. My favorite is to be able to personalize content and set goals. This means that one child may be learning more about classical texts such as Shakespeare, Wuthering Heights, while another student would be more interested in more recent literature or 20th century literature, 21st century literature, such as Harry Potter or other books such as Hunger Games. So these things are personalized content. Children can weigh in on those decisions as long as they fall within the scope of the curriculum. Developing agency is also both a goal and a process. We must ensure that we empower all learners, especially those who experience disadvantage in life. Studies have shown that the development of student agency is compromised or affected by socio-economic context of children. Children who come from poor backgrounds do not develop or have a harder time developing agency because they cannot see a future for themselves because they are poor. And so they just accept whatever education dishes out to them. And I think that is really the antithesis of student agency. Children should be able to imagine a future for themselves, and schools should allow them to do that. The other key indicator, or a key context of developing student agency is the concept of co-agency between the student, his or her peers, parents, teachers, and community. These relationships are important. On this slide, we show the degrees of co-agency that were developed by learners themselves in preparation for the Future of Education 2030 document of the OECD. The range starts from silence. Can you imagine that? Silence. Children do not have a say in any of the decisions made for them in school. Then it can move forward or a little bit better to tokenism. It means that students have some representation. For example, there is a student council or there is a class president. But these are representations that have very limited engagement with the classroom processes and the school. And then there is the more heightened level of co-agency where students are actually sharing in the decision-making processes with the teacher. And so this co-agency is very important to nurture because what we would like to see is not just engaged students, we also want to see students who are making decisions or directing themselves so that they can attain their personal goals. So, these are agents in training. So, to be able to push children to the level of student agency, they need to have fundamental skills first and foremost. Fundamental skills include literacy, numeracy, comprehension, content knowledge, among others. So the stronger their thinking or higher order thinking skills are, the more powerful they are and more likely to participate in agency. Second, another prerequisite is engagement. Students who are already applying themselves in schoolwork show motivation, interest, and abilities to work with others. So these two must combine so that a child can cross over to the level of student agency. In student agency, a student is not hindered. The student can use his or her voice to comment on whether learning topics are relevant or can be made more interesting. This is when students speak their minds and teachers listen. Choice is another aspect of agency, where students are helped by teachers to make good decisions. And finally, the third aspect of agency is when students participate in assessments of their progress. They take responsibility for the results and outcomes, and then they set new goals for themselves. These are not hierarchical. However, we have to stress that fundamental skills really help those children to push forward towards agency. In the beginning of this lecture, we started with the original formulation of Bandura, who cited personal, behavioral, and environmental factors. In 2021, Anderson adapted this by identifying 3 ingredients of learner agency that can be applied in schools. The first is the power to act, which is driven by personal and fundamental skills. The second is the will to act, which is underpinned by engagement, motivation, and of course, attitudes. And finally, is the provision of the environment in which to act, such as classrooms, where the student, together with teachers, school administrators, and peers, can exercise their learning agency. These are children who leave our schools at the end of elementary or high school. We asked the question in the beginning, how do we envision our students' future? Perhaps the true essential question should be, what should we be doing now so that our students can imagine and shape their futures? Thank you very much, and I hope you have a good day.
Magandang araw mga ka-edukambyon. Narinig mo na ba ang tanong na hanggang saan makakarating ang 20 pesos mo? Ano ang kakaiba sa tanong na ito at patok na patok? Kung iisipin nating mabuti, wala itong iisang tamang sagot. Sa halip, mag-iisip tayo ng iba't ibang mga sagot to think creatively. This question requires divergent thinking or the generation of a variety of ideas and alternative solutions to problems. It's the same cognitive skill that we use when we do brainstorming, thinking of new uses, or answering what-if questions. This type of thinking becomes more powerful with another type of thinking. Ito yung convergent thinking, which encourages us to bring together information to solve a problem. So, after a brainstorming activity, pipili na tayo ng pinakamainam o pinakaangkop na aksyon, gawain o solusyon. Na-consider na natin lahat ng possibilities, lahat ng options, lahat ng alternatives. So, makakapili na tayo ng pinakamainam. Paano ito maaring gamitin sa isang science classroom? Halimbawa, sa isang activity, ang unang tanong ay, write as many products of chemistry as you can na ginagamit mo every day. So, divergent thinking ito. Pagkatapos, from the list, choose the 10 most important things. So ito naman, convergent thinking na. Lastly, what would life be like if you only had these 10 things which you would have to share with your groupmates? Isa pang divergent thinking ito. Ito ang F2F o funnel to flask strategy. Ang wide rim ng funnel symbolizes divergent thinking. At sa pagitan ng funnel at ng flask ay narrow, which of course symbolizes convergence. At sa baba, makikitang wide ulit yung base ng ating funnel, which again symbolizes divergent thinking. Mahalagang maituro natin ang divergent thinking at convergent thinking sa ating mga estudyante upang mai-apply din ito sa iba pang aspeto ng buhay nila. Mag-isip ng maraming posibleng sagot sa mga problema. Suriin ang mga options, pumili ng pinakaangkop na aksyon, at magpatuloy sa paghahanap ng mga alternatibong solusyon. Ito ay mga kakayahan para sa aktibong pakikilahok nila sa kanilang pagkatuto at pag-unlad. Ito ang galawang edukampiyon ko. Ano ang sayo?
Isang mapagpalang araw mga kaedukampiyon, may tanong ako sa inyo. Anong mas mabigat? Isang kilong bulak o isang kilong pako? Malamang ang sagot mo ay pako dahil ang pako ay bakal at mas mabigat kesa sa bulak na malambot. Siyempre, ang sagot ay wala dahil parehas sila ng sukat. Parehas silang tig 1 kilo. Ngunit may mga tao na nagsasabi na magkaiba ang bigat ng mga yan. Paano nila naisip na magkaiba ang kanilang bigat? Sila ay nag-eksperimento at ginamit nila ang kanilang critical thinking. What is critical thinking? According to experts, critical thinking makes you question, analyze, interpret, evaluate, and make a judgment about what you read, hear, say, or write. Good critical thinking is about making reliable judgments based on reliable information. According to Osborne, in 2014, critical thinking is fostered in the science classrooms. We can develop critical thinking in our science classrooms by providing opportunities to engage students in critique, argumentation, and/or questioning. Sa paggawa ng mga daily lesson plan, magbigay tayo ng mga essential questions or EQ. Halimbawa, sa topic na Earth Science, what if the inner core is not solid? Will it support life? Ang EQ na ito ay sasagutin ng mga bata bago matapos ang lesson. Bukod sa mga EQs, ang mga guide questions sa mga activities at experiments ay naghahasa rin sa critical thinking ng mga mag-aaral natin. We can also develop critical thinking by driving students to critique or challenge knowledge already framed. Magdisenyo tayo ng mga activities o magbigay ng mga situations na students will critically compare the evidences with the predictions, with what we observe, and by argument. With this, science maintains its objectivity. We can also promote critical thinking by responding to students' pre- and misconceptions. Kaya, mahalaga na magbigay tayo ng pre-test before a module or topic. Mula sa pre-test ay malalaman natin ang kanilang mga pre- at misconceptions. This formative assessment can be used as a springboard to our lesson proper. Remember, critical thinking is at the heart of scientific inquiry. A good scientist is one who never stops asking why things happen or how things happen. Science makes progress when we find data that contradicts our current scientific ideas. Ito ang galawang edukampiyon ko. Ano ang sayo?
Magandang araw ka-edukampiyon. Kapag naririnig natin ang katagang collaboration, group work ba agad ang pumapasok sa ating isipan? Hindi naman iyan nakakapagtaka, pero para sa video na ito ay ating palawakin ang peer collaboration. From the words peer, meaning equal standing with one another, and collaboration as in act of working together for a common goal, Peer collaboration in the science classroom enables students to see their classmates as someone that they can confidently share and exchange ideas, hypotheses, and conduct experiments with. Ito ay isang closer relationship na iba sa pagtingin nila sa atin bilang kanilang teacher o facilitator sa klase. Pero paano ba natin ito maipapamalas sa loob ng science classroom? Narito ang PAC na dapat tandaan. Una ay purpose. Bawat experiment o activity ay mayroong objectives na dapat maibigay ng malinaw at buo sa klase. Ang pagkakaroon ng pre-laboratory discussion o paglalahad sa activity instruction ay magsisiguro na mayroong common purpose o problem to be solved. Sa ganitong paraan, pagdating ng oras na sila ay nasa grupo na, ay mayroong sapat at konkretong pundasyon ang kanilang magiging diskurso. Pangalawa ay assemble. Ito naman ay para sa mga activity na mahaba man o maikli. Maglaan ng pagkakataon na mapagsama ang grupo. Ang task sheet ay makakatulong upang makilala nila ang bawat isa, ang kakayahan ng kanilang bawat miyembro sa paggawa. Dito rin nila mabubuo ang sense of trust sa idea at output ng kanilang grupo. Huli ay choice. Bilang isang grupo ay dapat mabigyan sila ng flexibility kung paano may pepresenta ang kanilang output. Whether in the form of graphic organizers, models, or experiments, validating their choice of data presentation empowers their choice and make the task their own product. Purpose, assemble, choice. Subukan ng mga ito para sa isang PAC, perfect collaboration. Ito ang galawang edu-kampiyon ko. Anong sayo?
Magandang araw mga ka-edukampyon. Naranasan mo na ba ang biglang mapatigil sa iyong ginagawa at tanungin ang sarili, ano? Ano pa? Ano na? Sa ganitong pagkakataon, you are doing self-reflection. Reflection involves analyzing our own experiences with the goal to improve the way we learn. At mahalagang maituro natin ito sa ating mga estudyante. Ano ang natututunan nila? Ano pa ang kailangan nilang matutunan? At ano na ang gagawin nila sa mga natutunan nila? Meron itong dalawang key elements. Una, mabigyan ng mas malalim na kahulugan ang ating mga karanasan. May ugnay ito sa iba o sa kapwa at matukoy ang konteksto kung paano ito nabuo. Pangalawa, mapaghandaan na maging kapaki-pakinabang ang mga nasabing karanasan sa hinaharap. Paano ito maaring gamitin sa isang science classroom? Halimbawa, pagkatapos manood ng isang documentary tungkol sa nakapipinsalang epekto ng pagbabago ng panahon o climate change, bibigyan ng pagkakataon ang mga estudyante na suriin ang kanilang mga naging karanasan at mga bagong natutunan. Sa gawaing ito, sasagutin nila ang mga tanong na what, so what, at now what. Isa pang halimbawa ang think back, think ahead. Pagkatapos ang aralin tungkol sa kaligtasan tuwing may lindol, una, think back. Babalikan muna ng mga estudyante ang kanilang mga naging karanasan at suriin kung paano sila tumugon sa mga sakunang maaring naidulot nito. Sa think ahead, mag-iisip sila ng mga paraan upang maging mas handa ang kanilang pamilya at makatulong sa kanilang komunidad na ipalaganap ang mga dapat gawin kung makaranas ng lindol at mga pwedeng epekto nito. Mahalaga ang papel ng ginagampanan natin bilang mga guro sa pagkatuto ng ating mga estudyante ng mga kakayahan na may kaugnayan sa reflection. Mainam na matuto silang balikan at suriin ang kanilang mga naging karanasan upang sa pamamagitan nito ay makabuo sila ng angkop na pagtugon sa anumang sitwasyon sa hinaharap. Ito ang galawang edukampiyon ko. Ano ang sayo?
Magandang araw mga ka-edukampiyon. Naranasan mo na ba ang bumagsak sa isang pagsusulit? Naranasan mo na rin bang hindi sapat ang iyong kakayahan para sa isang gawain? Sa dalawang karanasan, naisip mo bang sumuko o magpatuloy? Kung ang ikalawang opsyon sa bawat karanasan ng iyong pinili, ang iyong pinakita ay ang pagkakaroon ng growth mindset. Ang growth mindset ay tumutukoy sa paniniwala ng isang tao na kahit anumang balakin ang kanyang kaharapin sa buhay o sa kanyang palagay ay may kulang sa kanyang mga kakayahan, naniniwala siya na hindi pa huli ang lahat at kaya pang bumawi. Naniniwala siya na sa patuloy ng pagsusumikap, makakamit ang tagumpay. Ang ganitong mindset ay mahalaga para sa pag-aaral ng agham sapagkat isa sa katangian ng isang siyentipiko ang pagiging matiyaga, masipag, at hindi basta-basta sumusuko. Mga katangiang kailangan upang tagumpay na makapagsagawa ng mga eksperimento, pagsisiyasat, o sa kabuuan, siyentipikong pag-aaral. Bilang mga guro sa agham, malaki ang ating gampanin upang epektibong maituro ito sa ating mga mag-aaral. At ilan sa maaari nating gawin ay ang pagbibigay sa mga mag-aaral ng gawaing reflektibo. Maaari natin itong gawin sa bawat pagtatapos ng isang aralin o talakayan. Makatutulong ang gawaing ito upang maanalisa at mabalikan ng bawat mag-aaral ang kanilang natutunan at kakayahan. Maaari rin tayo magbigay ng espesipikong komento sa gawain ng bawat mag-aaral gamit ang hamburger approach. Ang ibabaw at ilalim ng tinapay ng hamburger ay para sa mga parte ng kanilang gawain na ating nais purihin. At ang gitnang palaman ay para sa mga pagtatama at parte ng kanilang gawain na kinakailangan ng pagre-rebisa. Mahalagang epektibo nating maituro sa bawat mag-aaral ang pagkakaroon ng growth mindset upang makatulong sa kanilang holistikong pag-unlad bilang mag-aaral sa agham at isang individual. Sabi nga ni William Churchill, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." Ito ang dalawang edukampiyon ko. Ano ang sayo?
Kumusta kayo mga ka-edukampiyon? Kumusta kayo pagkatapos niyo mapanood ang 5 videos tungkol sa iba't ibang skills, attitudes at dispositions? Sana ay nagkaroon kayo ng bago o dagdag na kaalaman tungkol sa divergent and convergent thinking, critical thinking, peer collaboration, self-reflection, at growth mindset. Pero ang tanong ay, ano ang kinalaman ng mga ito sa student agency?
Let us recall what student or learner agency means. As we already know, student agency is a combination of motivation and mindset, power and capability, and enabling persons and environments. Student agency also involves the tools and skills that make a learner effective and engaged. Ang mga elements sa definition na ito ang pinaghugutan ng Team Agham para ma-identify ang mga topics sa series na ito.
Kaya balikan natin ang mga videos ng student agency in the science classroom. Nauna ang video ni Teacher Rach tungkol sa divergent and convergent thinking. Sa tingin ninyo, ano ang koneksyon ng divergent and convergent thinking sa student agency? Divergent and convergent thinking involves the higher order thinking skills like analyzing, synthesizing, and evaluating. These are essential cognitive skills for students to develop self-efficacy and growth mindset. In addition, divergent and convergent thinking skills are foundational cognitive skills that foster lifelong learning and helps develop in students the attitude to play an active role in their own learning. How about the video of Teacher Try? Hindi ba ang focus ng sharing ni Teacher Try ay critical thinking na isa sa pinaka-importanteng skills sa science? Actually, hindi lang sa science kung hindi lalo na sa pang-araw-araw na buhay. Ang sabi nga ng isang researcher, critical thinking is a form of rational, reflective thinking focused on deciding on what to believe or do. Hindi ba pasok na pasok sa definition ng student agency?
Our third video on peer collaboration was delivered by Teacher Clay. Bakit peer collaboration? The topic on peer collaboration helps set up a class environment where the motivation is elicited from the student. In this way, the students will naturally see that the task is best accomplished with their classmates. Teacher Clay highlighted PAC. What does it stand for again? Purpose, assemble, choice. A simple 3-step classroom approach for teachers to set up an environment for successful peer collaboration.
Ang sumunod na video mula kay Teacher Rach ay tumalakay sa self-reflection. Paano naman konektado ang self-reflection sa student agency? Activities for reflection allow students to think more deeply about their learning experiences, to realize that their science lessons can help them better understand how the world works, and to apply what they have learned in school in new situations or contexts. These activities also help develop positive attitudes like empathy and service orientation. These skills and attitudes help develop in students a strong sense of purpose and are consistent with the goals of student agency. Reflective skills are foundational cognitive and emotional skills that enable students to apply agency for their own benefit and for others.
Last but not the least ay ang growth mindset video ni Teacher Denry. Ang growth mindset ay pasok sa layunin ng student agency dahil binibigyang halaga nito ang holistikong pag-unlad ng mga mag-aaral pagdating sa mga aralin at sa buhay. Growth mindset highlights the idea na kaya ng mga mag-aaral ang anumang bagay sa tulong ng isang guro. Ang sentro ay mulit-muli para sa bata. Dagdag pa rito, pinapakita ng growth mindset na ang mga mag-aaral sa harap ng maraming pagsubok at balakid, gaya na lamang ng pandemya na dahilan upang kailanganin nating mag-shift sa remote learning setup na humahadlang sa pagsasagawa ng mga aktwal na gawaing panglaboratorio na esensyal sa buong pagkatuto ng mga mag-aaral ay may kakayahang bumawi at magpatuloy.
I hope that the connections between the student agency and the 5 topics that we have carefully and thoughtfully selected for you are much clearer now. I also want to add that based on studies, students will better develop skills and attitudes if we are explicit and deliberate or intentional about developing them. Needless to say, teacher agency is as important as student agency. We as teachers are empowered to create the needed environment for student agency to flourish in our science classrooms. Sa ngalan ni na Teachers Rach, Try, Clay at Denry, ito ang galawang edukampiyon ko. Ano ang sayo?